He shoved me to the ground in a diner full of people because I asked for water. Behind him stood another cop, arms crossed, smirking, and outside the glass, a woman in uniform watching it all, smiling. They thought I was just a homeless black man. They didn't know I was a decorated Marine. And with one phone call, I'd bring down everything they built on silence. That day, they shoved me, in broad daylight, in front of a dozen silent mouths chewing eggs and pancakes. "Get the hell out before I call ICE," barked the officer, white buzz-cut shades still on indoors. His finger jabbed into my chest like I was a threat to national security. Behind him, another officer, tall, lean face, tight with arrogance, stood with his arms crossed and a smirk carved deep into his cheek. All this because I asked for a glass of tap water. My name is Elijah Brooks. I'm a black man. I'm homeless. And I'm a U.S. Marine veteran. And that morning, I just wanted to sit down. The diner was nothing special. Greasy windows, coffee that tasted like regret, vinyl booths patched with duct tape. But to me, it was heaven. A moment's escape from the cold wind outside, from the constant shuffle of plastic bags tied to a cart, from the blank stares of people trying hard not to see me. I walked in quietly, boots, scuffed jacket, tattered at the seams. Still wore my unit patch on the sleeve, a habit, maybe a shield. I chose the last seat at the counter as far from anyone as I could. The waitress, a young girl with tired eyes, glanced at me with hesitation, then approached. "Water, please, that's all." She nodded. Maybe pity softened her. Or maybe she saw past the dirt. But I never got that water. A whisper across the diner. A finger pointed. And then, like I was back in Helmand Province, 2 uniforms stormed the door. Not to stop a crime, but to stop me. "You can't just loiter here," said the one with the buzz cut. His name tag read D. Chapman. He didn't wait for a reply, just stared down like I was supposed to disappear beneath the floor. "I'm not loitering," I said calmly. My voice cracked a little, not from fear, but from thirst. I asked for water. I served in the Marines. "Stolen valor," he scoffed. "You people say anything for a free ride." "You people," I repeated, narrowing my eyes. He leaned in. "Yeah, the kind who fake being heroes but can't even afford a meal." My hands curled into fists on my lap. I saw the waitress standing frozen behind the counter. I saw an old couple at the corner table look away, pretend they weren't hearing this. A man in a suit reached for his phone, then changed his mind and stuffed it in his coat. I was invisible and on fire at the same time. The second officer stepped forward. His tag read L. Finkel. "You're scaring the customers." I haven't even stood up. "That's enough," Chapman barked. Then he slapped the counter, making the salt shaker jump. "On your feet." Still, I stayed seated. I'm not going anywhere. I didn't expect what happened next. Chapman reached forward, grabbed me by the jacket collar, and yanked. Hard. My back hit the counter stool. The diner went dead silent. My tray of donated eggs slid and hit the floor. Coffee spilled over my boots, steaming. No one moved. No one spoke. And then I heard it. A soft click. A camera phone. Somewhere behind me, someone had started recording. That was the moment it all changed. But I didn't know it yet. They dragged me outside, hands behind my back. Didn't cuff me, but they made sure everyone saw the display. I was the entertainment. The morning show. Homeless man thinks he's too good for the sidewalk. That was probably the headline running through their minds. I heard a boy ask his mom, "Why are they hurting him?" She shushed him quickly. As I stood outside, wind biting through my jacket, Chapman leaned close again. "If I see you around here again, you won't be lucky enough for just a warning." He grinned. I stayed silent. But inside, something shifted. It wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last. But it would be the final time I kept my mouth shut. I walked away from the diner with my boots squelching from coffee, my jacket collar torn, and something else burning in my chest. Not shame, not fear. Resolve. I passed a kid on a skateboard. He stared at me, phone in hand. "Hey, you okay?" he asked. I nodded. "You recording?" He raised his phone. Got the whole thing. I reached into my pocket and handed him an old card. "Send it here." He looked at the name on the card and blinked. "Wait. You're—" "Yeah," I said, turning away. "Elijah Brooks." That night I sat under the bridge like usual, wrapped in my blanket, dog tag against my chest. But I didn't sleep. I watched that video over and over again, and then I made a phone call to someone who once called me brother, to someone who owed me a favor, and by the time the sun rose again, Chapman and Finkel had no idea what was coming. People only see the man I am now, a homeless black veteran in a tattered jacket, dirt under my nails, a few white hairs in my beard, the kind they cross the street to avoid, the kind cops shove around to feel powerful. But I wasn't always this man. The year was 2003. I was 25, a staff sergeant stationed near Kandahar, Afghanistan. That day, I led a recon team through a valley we weren't supposed to be in. The brass said low priority. I said, "We move or we die." Turned out I was right. An IED exploded 3 feet from our Humvee. 1 second we were rolling. The next, flames. Smoke. Screams. I dragged 2 men out with my arms torn up and my ears ringing like church bells. I still remember the look in Private Jensen's eyes. He had just turned 20. Blood soaked his uniform. I didn't know he was alive until he whispered, "Thank you, Sarge," before passing out. They gave me a Bronze Star. The Army gave me a medal. But when I came home, the country gave me a cold shoulder. I came back to Detroit in 2006. My wife Tanisha had been fighting cancer while I was gone. She died 6 weeks after my boots touched U.S. soil. No goodbye, just a sealed envelope with her handwriting, "Don't forget who you are." I still keep it. After that, everything unraveled. I tried to work at a mechanic shop first, then as a security guard. But the nightmares never left. I'd wake up swinging. Clients called me unstable. Employers called me a risk. The VA told me the wait list for PTSD therapy was 9 months. 9 months. I lasted 6 before the eviction notice hit my door. One night in the winter of 2010, I slept in my truck during a blizzard. I watched frost crawl across the inside of the windshield like it was trying to bury me. That was the same night the repo company found the truck. They towed it away with everything I owned inside Tanisha's photo. My medals, my service boots. After that, I stopped counting the days. I wasn't a man anymore. I was a ghost with skin. But something about that diner incident. It cracked something open, not the shame of being thrown out. I was used to that. It was the silence of everyone inside. The quiet betrayal of strangers who saw injustice but looked away. That silence roared louder than any battlefield explosion. And that kid, the one who filmed it, his name was Miles. 17 years old. Black, wore a hoodie and carried a skateboard like a badge of survival. He found me after I left the diner. Said he uploaded the clip to Twitter. "It's blowing up," he grinned. "Like people are pissed." I didn't know how to react. I just nodded. He showed me the screen. Thousands of views. Then tens of thousands. Comments like, "This man is a veteran. Someone ID that cop. We need justice." Then a message popped up on my old inbox from cole.harris.retired.ausa.gov. Subject: saw the footage. "Is that you, Brooks?" "Colonel Harris." I hadn't heard his voice in 12 years. He used to be my commanding officer. A hard ass, sure, but a man of his word. We didn't part on the best terms. After my last deployment, I wrote a scathing letter about the way command covered up a friendly fire incident. He took the fall for it. I thought he hated me. But now he was reaching out. I replied simply, "Yes, that's me." Minutes later, my phone buzzed. A call. "Brooks, son of a gun. What happened to you?" I laughed bitterly. "I got lost, sir." His voice dropped. "I'm sorry." There was silence. Then he said, "I know people. I mean real people, not Twitter heroes. If you're ready, I'll help." And just like that, something ancient stirred in me. Something I hadn't felt in years. Purpose. That night, I went to the city library, only place I could use a computer for free. I pulled up my military records, found scanned copies of my discharge papers, citations, my VA rejection letters, my appeals, the proof of the system's rot. I started compiling everything: footage, paperwork, old emails, medical neglect, police misconduct. Even a report from 2021 when a different Officer Chapman again shoved another homeless man into traffic. I sent it all to Colonel Harris. Then I sent a second batch, to a reporter, and a third, to the office of the Inspector General. By midnight, my email read like a bomb waiting to go off. I slept under the stars that night, but my heart beat like a war drum, not with fear, with anticipation. The next morning, I woke up to sirens, not the kind that chase you, but the kind that chase justice. 2 black SUVs pulled up outside the diner where it all began. Agents stepped out. Suits, sunglasses, federal, and across town at the precinct, Officer Daniel Chapman and Officer Lee Finkel were laughing about homeless drama over morning coffee. They didn't know their names were trending. Didn't know the Pentagon had opened an inquiry. Didn't know that one phone call from a forgotten soldier had pulled the first thread loose. They would know soon enough, because the war had just begun. And this time, I wasn't the one running. They say you don't recognize the devil until she smiles at you. Officer Karen Dunley didn't just wear a badge, she weaponized it. Every thread on her perfectly ironed uniform whispered authority, and every step she took came with the cold click of someone who thought she owned the streets. She was the queen of this broken chessboard, and I was a pawn she didn't expect to rise. I first saw her at the precinct the day I was fingerprinted for trespassing 3 months before the diner incident. I had curled up under an awning during a storm too close to City Hall, apparently. A few folks said I looked suspicious. Next thing I knew, I was face down on the wet concrete with a knee in my back. She didn't even arrest me herself. She just stood there, arms folded dry and smug in her raincoat. Then one officer asked. She sipped her coffee and nodded. No words, just a slight upturn of her lips. A smile that said, "You don't belong here, and I'll remind you every chance I get." Karen wasn't born into power. That was the dangerous part. She clawed her way into it. Past the force's psychological screening with flying colors, she knew just what to say. Served on the Community Engagement Task Force for PR, but behind closed doors, she wrote the unofficial rules. If you're black, you're a suspect. If you're poor, you're a nuisance. If you're homeless, you're invisible unless they need a headline. And no one voted her into that role. No one asked her to decide who gets respect and who gets a boot in the ribs. But Karen Dunley crowned herself anyway. She had a clipboard like a weapon, a pen like a sword. I watched her tear down food tents meant for veterans because they blocked the sidewalk. I watched her write $500 tickets for sleeping in a public park while turning a blind eye to drug deals across the street because the dealers looked like her cousins, not like me. People feared her. Officers worshipped her. Supervisors ignored her because Karen made problems disappear, and I was about to become one of those problems until that camera recorded her precious enforcers humiliating me at a greasy diner, and the internet saw everything she'd worked to bury. Her silence was lethal. That's what made her worse than Chapman or Finkel. They barked, they postured, they pushed men like me around and expected applause. But Karen orchestrated everything in whispers and smirks. That's how she ran the department. That's how she ran the city. After the video went viral, she tried to spin the story. She claimed I had threatened staff, said I refused to leave peacefully, even hinted I might have been high, though I've been sober for 12 years. But screenshots don't lie. Audio doesn't lie. And that camera caught more than just Chapman's aggression. It caught her reflection in the diner's glass watching from the sidewalk, watching the humiliation unfold like she was directing a movie. Arms crossed, that same smile. 3 days after the video broke, she held a press conference. Slick bun, crisp uniform, no emotion. Public trust matters, she said. We are reviewing all actions by involved personnel. I assure the public if protocol was violated, we will respond accordingly. The way she said protocol sounded like a death sentence whispered in a marble hall. I watched it all from a shelter's TV room surrounded by other forgotten men like me. Men with war in their eyes and wounds they never talk about. One of them, a Navy vet named Thomas, laughed bitterly. She looks like she'd arrest a child for breathing wrong. Another added, she's just mad the world finally saw what she really is. And I realized they all knew her, not by name, by pattern, by fear, by scars. But this time, she messed with the wrong invisible man. Colonel Harris called again that night. You're gaining ground, Brooks. Keep going. I'm not a lawyer, I said. I'm not a politician. You're a soldier. Soldiers move forward. Even when the mud's thick and bullets fly, I exhaled. He continued. We found past complaints. 5. Suppressed. 2 involved minors. 1 was sealed by internal review. Want them. Every single one. By morning, I had a digital folder full of fire. Victim statements. Audio leaks. Body cam inconsistencies. Internal memos. Karen Dunley had buried her skeletons, and I had just dug them all up. It was time to take the war public. So I walked into the city council chamber that Friday, same tattered jacket, same boots. The guards looked me up and down. One reached for his belt, but then he paused, because the local news anchor standing beside me lifted her camera. They let me in. Councilwoman Ruiz Latina, sharp-eyed no-nonsense, gave me 5 minutes on the record. That's all I needed. I am Elijah Brooks, I said, my voice trembling just slightly. I served this country, and I bled for it. And when I came back, people like Officer Dunley made me feel like the enemy. A murmur rolled through the room. I continued, but I'm not the only one. I have names, documents, evidence. You've let her reign unchecked, but not any more. A silence fell heavy like thunder before a storm. Then applause, real, growing, from veterans, from students, from mothers. Karen Dunley wasn't untouchable anymore. That night, she stormed out of the precinct. News vans followed her like vultures. She barked at reporters, slammed a car door, called everything politically motivated. But she knew the empire she built on silence was cracking, and I was still standing. I've been humiliated before, once by a landlord who tossed my uniform out with the trash, once by a VA nurse who called me a liability, once by a man in a Mercedes who threw $1 at my chest like I was a wishing well he didn't believe in. But nothing compared to the day I knelt in spilled coffee boots soaked while a cop called me a liar in front of strangers eating pancakes. And no one did a damn thing, except one kid with a camera. The video was 27 seconds long, blurry, shaky, but every second held fire. Officer Chapman yelling, "Get up," me saying I served. His reply, "Stolen valor. You people lie." The moment his hand grabbed my collar, the tray crashing to the floor, my head jerking from the pull, the silence of the diner, and then, barely visible in the diner's glass, Karen Dunley, arms crossed, smiling. The clip exploded. Local first, then statewide, then national. Veterans reposted it with hashtags. This is not how you treat us. Marine, not Vermine. Justice for Elijah. Then the politicians jumped in just enough to save face. Then the late-night hosts. Then the White House press secretary. And suddenly my life was no longer a whisper under a bridge. It was on every screen in America. But not everyone was happy. 3 days after the footage went viral, I was standing outside the shelter when a squad car pulled up. Chapman stepped out. No badge, no uniform, just rage dressed in civilian clothes. "Got a lot of nerve showing your face in my city," he growled. "It's my city too," I said calmly. I bled for it. He stepped closer, inches from my face. I could smell his sweat, his ego. "You think you won because people clapped online." I didn't flinch. "I think the truth has a louder voice than your threats." Then I noticed it. A phone held by a bystander across the street. Another camera, another witness. He saw it too, and he stepped back. Cowards always do when they're seen. That same night, Karen Dunley tried damage control. She went on live TV. While I cannot speak to every detail of the incident, I trust my officers. We've served this community for years. Mistakes happen. Let's not turn every encounter into political theater. Political theater. That's what she called my pain. That's what she called my bruises, my scarred wrists, my dignity spilled across the diner floor like syrup and shame. But the footage kept spreading. It reached military circles. Commanders, senators. A retired 4-star general reposted it with, "This man deserves honor, not handcuffs." And then came the real hammer and open letter, signed by 200 veterans sent to the mayor's office, demanding a full investigation, demanding accountability, demanding justice. And the walls began to tremble. One morning, the mayor summoned a press conference. I watched from the back row, standing tall in my old jacket, patched by strangers who now called me brother. Flashes burst, cameras rolled, voices hushed. Mayor Langston stepped to the podium, a white man in a navy suit, sweating more than he should have been. "We are announcing an independent inquiry into the actions of Officer Chapman and Officer Finkel," he said. "Effective immediately, both are suspended without pay. We are also reviewing leadership conduct across the department." A pause. "Then this includes Deputy Chief Karen Dunley." The room gasped. That was the moment, that exact breath when power cracked. But it wasn't over. Later that night I walked back to the alley I once slept in, not because I needed to, because I wanted to remember the spot where I spent Christmas cold, the broken window I used as a mirror, the wall where I carved Semper Fi with a rock. That alley made me invisible. But now I had a name again. Now I had a voice. Now I had witnesses. And still, Karen didn't fold. She wasn't the type. No, she came back swinging, filed a counter-narrative, claimed the footage was edited, claimed political rivals were weaponizing a tragedy, even tried to reach out through back channels, offered me a deal drop, the complaints get fast-tracked for housing, and she'd personally apologize. I sent her answer back in one line. This fight was never about housing. It was about something bigger. Dignity, memory, truth. Then came the breaking point. One of her own officers leaked body cam footage from a previous arrest. A black teen, pinned, cuffed, crying. Karen's voice off-screen. He'll remember next time not to mouth off. The city turned. Even her defenders fell silent. The mayor called an emergency council vote, and for the first time in her career, Karen Dunley was no longer untouchable. That night I returned to the diner, not as a ghost, as a guest. They had saved a seat for me. The same one where it all began. This time the waitress brought water, no hesitation, and when I drank, the whole diner clapped. No cameras, no speeches, just a moment of peace. A moment I had fought for, and won. Sometimes the loudest rebellion begins in silence. No parades, no cameras, no marching slogans. Just me. A room. And the heavy thrum of a printer spitting out truth one page at a time. This was war now, only this time I wasn't using bullets. I was using records. After the press conference, the city buzzed with noise, hashtags, debates, protests. But while they shouted, I disappeared. Not to run, to prepare. I found myself at the old Veteran Community Center on Halsted Street. They knew me there, at least what I used to be. Mr. Washington, a Korean war vet with cloudy eyes and a spine curved like a question mark, handed me a dusty box. You said you served boy. Prove it with more than scars. Inside, old service rosters, a typewriter, a folder of official complaint forms, a forgotten arsenal. I set up camp in the back room. No heat, flickering light. It didn't matter. My mission was clear. Every night I dug. Complaint reports, city payroll audits, VA letters, court testimonies from citizens. Karen silenced with threats. Officer Chapman's record alone ran 23 pages long, and that was just the redacted part. Each file, each name was another brick in my silent fortress. But the most damning document, a sealed case, marked internal use only. Victim Latrell L.T. Henderson, 15 years old, minor. Accused of vandalizing a patrol car. Officer in charge, Karen Dunley. Witness statement redacted. Body cam footage marked missing. But there, it was a single handwritten note in the margin. Handled by Deputy Chief. No further action. Covered up. Buried. Forgotten. Until now. I made copies. I sent them out like carrier pigeons. One to the press. One to a civil rights attorney in D.C., one to a military contact in internal oversight, and one, just one, left anonymously at Karen Dunley's front door. Inside the envelope I wrote, "You buried us. Now we rise." Meanwhile, I moved quietly. No social media, no TV interviews, just whispers through street corners, shelters, libraries. Vets who'd been stepped on. Mothers whose sons had bruises instead of justice. Clerks who shredded truth for a paycheck and now couldn't sleep. They all started sending me stories, affidavits, photos. One woman, a school nurse, handed me a USB drive wrapped in tissue. My conscience finally outweighed my fear, she whispered. On that drive, security footage. Karen yelling at a guidance counselor for filing a complaint against her niece, a probation officer with a record of excessive force. This wasn't a rogue cop. This was a machine. and I was stuffing its gears with sand. Colonel Harris stayed in touch low and steady like a sniper in the weeds. "You're getting close," he said over the phone. "I'm getting tired," I replied. "Good," he said. "It means you're almost at the breach point." But not everyone wanted me to win. One night around 1 a.m., I walked outside the vet center to stretch. Two figures waited near the alley. Hoodies up, faces hidden. One of them stepped forward. "You're Elijah Brooks." I froze. "Depends who's asking." "You've been digging into some dangerous places." He didn't raise a fist. He raised a warning. They don't care if you're a hero. If you keep pressing, they'll erase you. I looked him dead in the eye. "They tried to do that already." He didn't reply, just nodded and walked away. That was the last straw, the final confirmation that I wasn't just fighting for my name. I was fighting for every name they tried to erase. I bought a prepaid phone, called Miles, the kid who filmed the diner clip. "Can you edit something for me?" He sounded groggy. "Like a video." "No, a declaration." I sent him all the files, told him to compile the footage, overlay the voice recordings, fade in the victims' names like tombstones on screen. 30 hours later, he sent me a private link. I pressed play. By the end, I was crying, not for myself, but for the 10-year-old boy in the last clip, holding his dad's folded flag and whispering, "They said he resisted." That night I hit send. The video went live, titled only, "You Didn't See Us." But we were always here. By dawn, it had 1 million views. By noon, Karen Dunley called a private meeting with the mayor. By evening, she canceled it, because the people were already outside City Hall. And me, I was watching it all from the top of the Veterans Building arms, crossed heart steady, because sometimes the loudest wars are won in silence, and the quiet ones, they hurt the oppressors the most. It wasn't a scream that brought the house down. It was a ring, one sharp, precise ring, the kind of ring that slices through lies and makes people pause mid-sentence because they know something bigger is coming. I was standing in the stairwell of the Veterans Center, fingers cold around a burner phone, my thumb hovering over the call button. For weeks, I had moved in shadows, collected evidence, lifted the veil on corruption so thick it stained every thread of a once noble uniform. But I saved one thing, one weapon, one favor. The last card in the deck, I pressed call. The line clicked twice. Then a voice, low and gravelly Brooks. "Colonel Harris," I said. "It's time." There was no hesitation. "I'll loop him in," Harris said. "Stand by." Him. He didn't say the name, but I knew who he meant. Major General Paul McClintock, head of Internal Military Oversight. The man who spoke in classified rooms whose name alone caused city halls to rearrange chairs. 3 minutes later, the line beeped again. "Elijah Brooks," the new voice said. "Calm. Sharp. Military. We've reviewed everything. I'm dispatching federal observers to your location within the hour. The Pentagon is requesting a full departmental review of the precinct." I swallowed. Hard. "Are you ready to testify publicly?" I didn't blink. I've been ready for 20 years. At 10:14 a.m., 2 black SUVs pulled up to City Hall. Doors opened. Men in suits stepped out. No emotion, no hesitation. Federal. The kind who don't carry clipboards, they carry warrants. They walked in silent formation like judgment marching into the heart of power. Inside, Deputy Chief Karen Dunley sat at her usual seat. Spine straight, uniform pristine, nails blood red. No press today, no crowd. Just the mayor, the commissioner, her, and uninvited, but present me. They didn't know I was coming until I walked in. Chapman saw me first. His face twisted like he tasted sour milk. Finkel shifted in his seat. Dunley. She just smiled, but not the smug smile. No, this one was forced. Fragile. A mask about to crack. Mr. Brooks, the mayor, began clearing his throat. This is a closed internal review. General McClintock stepped forward, badge in one hand, federal ID in the other. It is now a federal proceeding. Silence. The commissioner turned ghost white. Dunley still smiled. "Is this really necessary?" she said. McClintock turned to her. "You buried 5 misconduct reports. Covered up excessive force on minors. Directed officers to relocate undesirables. Lied under oath on 2 occasions. Ordered body cam footage deleted. And stood witness while a decorated Marine was assaulted in public. So, yes." He placed a folder on the table. Thick, labeled Dunley, Classified Investigation, Pentagon, Oversight, very necessary. Dunley leaned back, her smile dropped, and for the first time I saw something in her eyes I never thought possible. Fear. Chapman tried to speak. Finkel reached for the door. McClintock didn't raise his voice. "Sit." They did. The room felt like a held breath. I stepped forward. Every footfall was a drumbeat in the ears of cowards. "I am Sergeant Elijah Brooks," I said. U.S. Marine Corps, Bronze Star. Honorably discharged. Homeless veteran. Victim of your abuse. And survivor of your silence. No one interrupted. No one could. I opened the folder. I brought photos, transcripts, names. I laid them on the table, one by one, like weapons. Karen flinched when she saw the photo of L.T. Henderson. "I don't know who that—" "You do," I cut her off. "He died by suicide 3 years later, after you destroyed his file." She looked away. An hour later, General McClintock stood. "This is no longer a disciplinary hearing. This is the first step in a full federal indictment." He turned to me. "You'll be protected. Your testimony will be preserved at the federal level. You have our word, Sergeant." I nodded, silent, steady, and as the agents cuffed Chapman and Finkel Dunley stood. "No one will believe this," she hissed. I stepped closer, whispered. "They already do." As she was escorted out of the room, reporters snapped photos through the windows. Karen Dunley, once the Queen of Silence, now reduced to a perp walk in front of the very community she swore to serve. And me. I didn't cheer. I didn't gloat. I just stood there, whole. That night I sat on a bench outside the diner. Same one as before. Same coffee. Only this time it wasn't cold. The waitress, the one who used to avoid my eyes, brought me a slice of pie. On the house she said, "Thank you." Across the street a mural had gone up overnight. It wasn't mine. It was a wall of names. Every victim, every silenced voice, and under it in bold black paint, "We see you now." The city didn't collapse in fire and fury. It exhaled. One long collective breath it had been holding for too many years. When Karen Dunley fell, it wasn't with sirens and screams. It was the sound of paper, an indictment laid on a desk, a resignation typed in silence, a badge placed face down on a courtroom bench. No one picked it up. No one wanted to. Because her power didn't vanish, it evaporated. Truth has a way of bleaching out even the darkest corners. The next morning, I woke up not beneath a bridge, but beneath a roof. An anonymous donor, later revealed to be a veterans advocacy group, had paid for a year's lease in a modest apartment on the edge of the city. Nothing fancy. A window, a small kitchen, a mattress I didn't have to defend from the cold. But that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was the folded American flag on the windowsill, Tanisha's photo beside it, and the quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't hum with danger or shame. The kind of quiet earned. I didn't vanish after the trial. No, I began to speak. At schools, at shelters, on podcasts, at city council hearings. People asked, "Why didn't you fight back sooner?" And I always told them the same thing. I was surviving, not living, and I thought no one would hear me. But now they listened. Chapman and Finkel pleaded guilty, use of excessive force, obstruction, falsifying reports. Finkel cried at sentencing. Chapman didn't. He just stared at me like I still didn't belong in the room. But the judge disagreed. She looked at me, her voice steady, and said, "You changed this city, Sergeant Brooks. You reminded us what integrity looks like." As for Karen Dunley, she lawyered up, blamed the culture, the pressure, the media. But the paper trail didn't lie. She was stripped of rank, blacklisted from law enforcement. And when her neighbors saw her face on the evening news, they didn't defend her. They turned off their porch lights. That's how you know a tyrant's reign is truly over, when even the silence around them changes sides. But this story was never about revenge. It was about dignity, about being seen. 1 month after the trial, I returned to the diner, the same place where they tried to erase me. This time, I didn't walk in alone. Miles. Yes, the teen with the camera was with me. He wore a hoodie that said, "Truth is my weapon," in bold red print. He's 17, but already more fearless than I ever was at that age. "Let me buy you breakfast," he said, grinning. I laughed. "You even have a job yet?" "Nope. But you're a hero, and heroes eat free." We sat down. Same seat, same waitress. But her hands didn't shake this time. Her eyes didn't dodge mine. She smiled. "Welcome back, Sergeant." The news ran one final story, a retrospective. The headline read, "One man, one phone call, a city transformed." But I never saw myself that way. Not as a hero, not as a savior, just a man who finally stood up. Today, I run a foundation, Semper Truth. We help homeless veterans find resources, shelter, and most importantly, a voice. We teach them how to fight back with records, with cameras, with courage. We don't raise fists, we raise awareness. And the city, it's still imperfect. But kids no longer flinch at uniforms. And officers now wear body cams, like crosses, reminders of accountability. Because the people are watching. Because the people remember. Because we're not invisible anymore. There's a mural on 7th Street now. It's me, sitting in that diner booth looking out the window. But on the glass, instead of my reflection, it shows dozens of faces. Black, brown, young, old. All of us, watching, witnessing. And underneath it, painted in bold white strokes, dignity doesn't need a badge. It just needs to stand. What they saw was a man in a torn jacket. What they didn't see was a Marine who gave everything. They tried to erase him with silence, power, and shame. But in the end, truth stood taller than any badge. And with one phone call, he reminded the world that dignity doesn't wear a uniform. It lives in those who rise even when the world tells them to stay down. Sometimes life will strip everything from you. Your home, your name, your pride. But when you stand for what's right, when you speak even with trembling lips, you don't just change your story, you change the world around you. Because the strongest voices come from the quietest corners. If this story moved, you don't just scroll. Hit subscribe to join us in telling stories that others want silenced. Leave a comment to stand with those who were told to sit down. And share this video, because someone out there needs to know they are seen. Tap the bell, stay with us, and tell your story next. Because this isn't just content, it's a movement.